It's a beautiful Thursday morning if you're a Cardinal fan or a National fan, but if you're a Braves fan or if you're a Dodgers fan, it's probably cloudy wherever you are today. But Major League Baseball, it's fun. We'll probably talk about the St. Louis Cardinals the whole show today, so no, I'm just kidding. Actually, we've got a big show coming on. This is Todd Griffin of WPKY and YourSportsEdge.com. Caldwell County soccer coach Tanner Reed is with us. Tanner, good morning. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Also, Gary Goodaker, one of the newest Caldwell County Football Hall of Famers in the studio. Congratulations, Gary. Thanks for coming in.
It's a pleasure. How are you, Todd?
Doing great this morning. The Cardinals won. Everything's fantastic.
Not only did they win, they let your blood pressure be at a low level. You didn't have to be throwing items at your couch.
Right. Didn't have to sweat it out.
No, you got to coast into the NLCS and host it.
Yes, actually get to host the National League Championship Series with the Nationals since they were the wild card team. So everything is coming up Cardinals right now, but, postseason can be fickle sometimes, and I think baseball postseason anymore is just kind of a crapshoot.
Well, I think that we'll talk about this later, but I think if you have to face the Nationals, I think you'd rather face them in a 7-game series than a 5-game series.
Right. We'll get to that in a little bit. Tanner, what's your take on the Major League Baseball playoffs? I'm just going to kind of put you on the spot right here.
Great. Well, I don't really watch baseball, if I'm being completely honest. It's just that one sport that I never really got into. So my take is I do not have one.
Oh, you got to pick a favorite team though, so you can live and die with the rest of us. Kind of on that big train of postseason emotion.
I can't do it. I've tried to watch baseball on TV, and I got taken to a game once, and it's just not the sport for me. There's a reason that I was built to be a soccer player.
Well, we're going to talk about a lot of other things, so everybody stay with us. We'll be back with more on the Sideline Report to get things going right after this on 1580, 103.3 WPKY. We are back on the Sideline Report on 1580, 103.3 WPKY. Thanks for joining us this morning. In the studio with us is Caldwell County boys soccer coach Tanner Reed. Caldwell County Football Hall of Famer Gary Goodaker in the house as well. Going to start this morning with a little soccer talk, though. And, Coach, good season for your guys. A lot of times you would look at a season and say 4 wins. Well, everybody would like to have more. But when you look at the circumstances, I thought 4 wins was a really good showing for you guys.
Absolutely, and I heard that a lot. People had some low expectations at the start of the season. It's just kind of what's going to happen. And then throughout the season, the players progressed, got a lot better, got a lot stronger, showed the quality that they had. And now the sky's the limit for those guys. We have very high hopes for what we're going to be able to do next year, and we're really ready to get started.
Well, and looking at the season, you guys were really a really good JV team playing a varsity schedule. You had one senior, one junior, I think, but the rest of your lineup was freshmen, sophomores, and it's difficult to go out and compete when other teams are running juniors and seniors at you.
Yeah, it is. From the standpoint just that the juniors and seniors, they've grown a little bit more. They're a little bit stronger, a little bit quicker, and a little bit faster overall. But as far as speed of play and work in the actual soccer realm, I believe my team kept up with every team that we played. The only way that we got outmatched was if it was a size battle. And we even stepped up to a few of those throughout the year.
Well, and looking ahead, I mean, you've got so many people coming back, and those kids are still going to be young, but now you've had them for a year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so now I know our tendencies. I know pretty much what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are, how we're going to spend our off season, what we're going to spend our time working on, and turning our weaknesses into strengths. And it's going to be a lot of fun. I think next year is going to be a year where the team pushes past a level that they haven't reached in a while.
Now, you had one senior this year, Josh Hagan, and he had a big year for you.
He did. Him stepping up and being the goalkeeper was huge. I can't imagine where we would have been if he didn't play, because Josh naturally is a center back. He makes a good center back fit. He's very good from back there. But naturally, we needed him in the goal because we just didn't have any other options, and he stepped up. He played that role. He did it well, and he saved us in quite a few big games.
What do you look for a keeper for next season?
This keeper right now is going to be Corbin Nichols. He was our JV goalkeeper. He's an 8th grader at the moment. He's very technically sound as a goalkeeper, and I believe he'll just end up getting bigger over the years as an 8th grader now. So that's more than likely going to be who we're looking at for the next few years, and he's a leader on the team already. I wouldn't be surprised if the boys nominated him to be team captain as a freshman next year.
Oh, wow. And we talked about you guys getting 4 wins this year, but there were several other games that were out there that were possibilities. And again, going into the season with such a young team, you're sitting there wondering, are we going to get a win here, maybe a win there? Mm-hmm. And you guys really were in a lot of games.
Oh, yeah. I think you can take away those first 3 or 4 games that we played in the season, really up until we played Grayson County, for everything to kind of click and realize that we can play with teams, size, age, all that stuff doesn't matter, and they started understanding the system, because whenever you play a system game, it takes all the variables out because you're just playing your role and doing your job, and it makes everything a whole lot easier. So when the boys bought into that, our game results completely changed.
Now, as a first-year head coach, how much of what you want to do did you get in this year?
That's a brilliant question. I lost sleep on most nights thinking about what we could have done better. Am I doing the right things in training? So I'll just throw a percent out there. Probably like 40% of what I wanted to get done is what I got done. But it's a good thing that we've got a long off season and a full year to prepare and work on the things that I feel like we might have missed.
As a coach, though, it's a pretty interesting situation. I mean, I'm sure you'd rather have a team that was absolutely loaded for bear and was out there trying to win the region. Mm-hmm. But when you come in and taking over a program for the first time, you really get to put your print on it because you have those young kids that you can still kind of mold into the team you would like.
Right, and I've joked with them in a way. It's kind of like they're actually my kids because it's my first year coaching and all that. So we're going to grow up together and learn a lot. But yeah, it's going to be. Of course, everybody wants that big. For example, Madisonville had 12 seniors, and you see what their team is like. If you've watched them, they're just on a completely different wavelength than everybody else. But their coaching staff, whom I know very well, and their players even told me whenever we were watching the district title game that they wanted us to win that game because they loved the way that we played. Not necessarily just because it was a good matchup for them, but because we played a style of soccer that was just fun to watch and fun to be on the field with. So hearing that coming from, a high school kid who probably doesn't dish out compliments about other teams that often, that was a good thing to hear and a good thing for my boys to get recognized for.
Well, and in that district, go ahead, Gary.
Well, I was just thinking that the comment that I wanted to make was if you were going to be starting a new program, I would think you would want to have what you have now, which is almost predominantly all below juniors, sophomores, and freshmen. If you can only get 40% in, you might as well have a team that you can get the full 100% in and get maximum value out of. I mean, you've got everyone returning but your goalkeeper, and you've already stated you think you have a goalkeeper ready, and I'm sure he's been watching and he knows your system as well. This seems like it would almost be an ideal scenario given the potential you've got.
Yeah, it really is, just because, players had their natural habits and their natural thoughts about the game whenever they first came in, but naturally whenever I came in, they just kind of adopted mine, and now there's no preconceived notions about how to play the game. They just go by my philosophy and my motto. So in a lot of ways, it was a blessing.
And one thing I've noticed from football, and I think it would carry over to soccer, the biggest jump I see in males is from to the sophomore year. From the freshman year to the sophomore year is when the biological growth spurt. I think these 13 freshmen, when you come back, you're going to see 13 much more physically developed sophomores, and all of a sudden the size differential you've been seeing, I think, will drastically drop because they're just going to get 4 inches taller and probably 20 pounds heavier. The key is, can you get them to be conditioned correctly with their new bodies?
Absolutely. That's actually a process that we are about to start. I'm coordinating with Lake Barkley CrossFit down in Eddyville. Their main coach, Corey Jessup, is a good friend of mine. I've known Corey a long time. And then, obviously, one of the other coaches is the father of one of our kids, Ethan. So we're going to coordinate with them. We're going to get stronger. We're going to get faster. So even if we don't have this metaphorical growth spurt, we're going to be able to keep up in body and keep up with the speed of play just because of the work that they put in.
Looking at the district tournament the other night, you had the momentum early in that game, just couldn't maintain it. Again, though, like we talked earlier, that was a situation where you've got your young team out there. Hopkins Central's got some bigger kids. I mean, when you look at the teams and the lineup before the game, it's clear that Hopkins Central was the more mature team out there.
Yeah, hats off to my boys. At the beginning of that game, we came out, we scored first, and we were playing good soccer. Tyler Litton got his first goal in the year off an assist from Graydon Miller. Graydon doing what he did all season long, just playing a very tough striker role. But at that point, you saw the momentum shift because they played this get the ball up the field as quick as possible, route one type of soccer. And against a team that's not as fast, as strong as you, it can work. So we had to adopt their play style. We weren't very comfortable, and we just couldn't find our foothold.
I thought their keeper did a good job, though, and there was a shot, I can't remember if it was late first half, early second half that Blake Viverette got off, and it was a nasty shot. I'm not sure how he hit that ball, but it dove down and knuckled, and the keeper made a great save, and that was a key point in the game right at that moment.
Oh yeah, if that ball had gone in, I believe we would have had so much more momentum. And Blake was hitting shots. We had a shoot around that morning. Blake was hitting shots like that all morning, and that's another reason I'm excited to come back. We haven't even tapped the potential of the Graydon Millers, the Hayden Balls, the Blake Viverettes, the Blake Lancasters. I haven't even begun to tap the potential that these kids have in them. So to see glimpses of it this year was just fun to see. But whenever it stops becoming a glimpse and it becomes the standard, that's when we're going to be a fun team to watch.
And you guys got Hopkins Central during the season.
And probably one of the most exciting games that we've had.
Yeah.
That it went down to that penalty shootout, and I would say that was a game where we actually forced them to play our style a little bit. I would say we kept the ball that game and put some good goals in, and my team showed me that for a team that hadn't worked on penalties, I had 5 takers that could step up and do the job.
Yeah. And if you look back at the district tournament and that championship game, like you said earlier, Madisonville is just kind of on a different level.
Yeah, I don't know what they're ranked right now in the state, but I know they're up there. Yeah, their coach is Christaki. He has done an incredible job with those kids. He's got them all bought in. And being over there near their bench, hearing the way that they associate with each other and the way that they speak about the game, how they're all tuned in. I heard him give instructions to his freshman that was going in because they had a nice, comfortable lead at that moment. But they sent in the freshman. He said, "You don't have any reason to take more than 3 touches." And I specifically watched that freshman for the next 6, 7, 8 minutes. And there wasn't a time where he got the ball where he didn't take more than 3 touches. He was 1-2 out of his feet, 1-2 out of his feet. So the fact that a freshman comes on and just takes instructions like that, of course he's got a bunch of seniors and juniors around him helping him. It was just fun to see.
I got a quick question that I've thought about. I mean, you talked about the CrossFit and you're going to do the conditioning. These kids play on club teams. However, they will play on different teams most likely, and they'll learn different systems. How are you going to make sure that what they learn, how are they going to take what they learn from their club team and meld it with your system? Because you're the coach and you want them to run that system. What are you looking for out of their club seasons?
Well, actually, something that we're trying to set up during the spring, I will be coaching the middle school soccer team, but I'm also wanting to coach a club team. I was a club coach with Dynamo, and we'll either continue with Dynamo or with PVS, whatever we decide to do. But I'm wanting to make a club team out of those boys and just keep them on the same club team together with me as the coach, and it's just kind of like we never stop. That's the goal. But if that can't happen, and kids did play for different clubs, it's okay. A good player can adopt to a different system. It's all about learning the fundamentals and the technical skills and reading the game. If you can read the game, you can be placed in any system. That's a coachable kid. That's what these more kids in general have to learn. It's not just about being a great athlete. You have to be coachable. You have to be able to evolve to different games, because sometimes you can't play your game. You have to play somebody else's, so you need to learn how to do it better than they do it.
I think we've talked about this before, but what would be the ultimate for you at Caldwell County? What is the ultimate goal down the line? What do you have to do to compete with a Madisonville or a Henderson County or those kind of schools?
Well, I mean, my goal as a coach right now, I guess, is to kind of get them to a place that they've never been before. I think Adam Ball is my assistant, who he saved me in more ways than I can count. And a big thank you to him, and the boys loved him as soon as he came in. But I don't know if they've won region. I don't think they have. So I would like to get a region title under my belt, and to compete with these schools. We just gotta keep doing what we're doing, because we're doing the right things, and the payoff isn't immediate. It's a couple weeks down the road, or it's a year down the road, and if the boys trust that process, they will see the results that they want, and we're going to get there one way or another. It just may not be as fast, or it may come faster than some of them expect.
I like what you say, the payoff's not immediate. In the sports I'm more familiar with, baseball and football, everything's in like a 2-year age bracket. Mm-hmm. So you play people usually no more than 1 year older than you. Well, let's imagine that you played basically juniors and seniors. Well, look what the results would be. But because you have to play people 2 and 3 years older, these kids cannot immediately see it. They have to trust the process. I know everyone's got the process, but even more, they've got to realize long-term gratification. And that's a coaching style, and that's a coaching situation where you have to convince them that every day you've got to get a little better. You can't just you can't have mindless reps. If you have a practice and everything just goes through the motion in any sport, you haven't grown. Did you grow? And if you see growth every day, then you're doing the right things, and I commend you for realizing that it's a long-term process.
Exactly. But the problem is it's not up to me at that point. I learned that as a coach. I actually said that to my assistant, Ann-Rhett Miller. We were all hanging out before we had our district games on Monday, and it drove me nuts, because I'm a player, and I played at a high level, or at least in my mind I did. But I'm just sitting there thinking about things in the game and things that I want players to do and the movement and all this, and then I'm sitting there and I look at Rhett, I go, the crazy thing is none of the stuff that I'm thinking matters right now, because it all depends on how my boys show up and what they want to do on that day. So there are definitely those days where I'm frustrated as a coach, and I can tell we're going through the motions. We're tired, or we're just wore out. But I would say, and I think anybody that watched us from day one to the day where it ended, that those were two completely different teams.
Well, and it had to be a bit of a culture shock for you, because you're from Marshall County and the program there is outstanding, and then you come here and you kind of have to, do a lot of rebuilding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I come from a great program that's got a lot of history. I played there and I coached there for my first 2 years. So I've been under and mentored by some incredible coaches throughout my entire time. So I think that's what helped prepare me a little bit more. And they did a great job of checking up on me and making sure I had what I needed, and just kind of giving me their ideologies towards things, because as coaches that have been around, for 10, 15 plus years, they've been around, they've done it. So I'm always getting advice from those guys. So I'm very thankful to have that background. But as far as rebuilding, that, like we talked about earlier, that's probably the best scenario for me to come into, instead of coming into somewhere that was already kind of established and had everything going, and then where my head's more on the chopping block, so to speak, if I don't do well. So it was I felt comfortable, and the community did a great job of making me feel comfortable, and the parents and administration, and I mean, you guys, really, I felt like I was from here the whole time. Everybody treated me with such kindness and courtesy, and I mean, if they had negative things to say about me, they didn't post it online or say it to my face.
Well, another thing you mentioned the parents. You've got many parents that I know, because I have a son that age, that they watch soccer with their kids, and they played soccer, and they were one of the first generations that came through here. I do the same thing with my son who plays baseball. I'll be watching MLB, and I'll go, come here, did you see this? You've got parents who will do that, who know the game and enjoy the game. So you've got really a generation of kids who are ready for this level of soccer. They just have to grow into it, and luckily you've got the time investment that you're going to get the years with them to put it in. So I do think you honestly do have a very good situation here.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I couldn't thank my parents enough for all that they did, on the boys and girls side. They were heavily involved all year round, and I mean, I'm learning quickly how hard it is to constantly be involved whenever you've got so many things going on. So the sacrifices that these people make, to work for us and to be there for their kids, it's been incredible.
We're talking this morning with Caldwell County boys soccer coach Tanner Reed. Gary Goodaker is also in here with us. We need to get to a break on the show, but we'll continue with more right after this on 1580, 103.3 WPKY. We are back on the Sideline Report on 1580, 103.3 WPKY, and worldwide at WPKYonline.com. Thanks for joining us. Again this morning, Tanner Reed, Caldwell County boys soccer coach, is in the studio. Gary Goodaker is here with us as well, and we were hoping to get Lady Tiger coach Rhett Miller in with us this morning, but Tanner, he had to go to Madisonville for some business over there this morning.
Yep. I wish I was there with him. I wish I was there. They're there for the district draw to see who they're going to face in the first round of the region tournament. Those girls had an incredible year. I actually had a lot of fun. A lot of them would come over during training practices or stay with us after work on shooting and stuff like that. Because Rhett's been around the game a long time. I like to point out a long time. If he's listening, he's probably not. But he knows the game very well, but I'm really technical. I'm all about making sure you strike the ball correctly. You touch it where you need to put it, and all that kind of stuff. And I got to work with a lot of those girls this year on their technical ability, and they made it fun. They're going to have a successful run in the region tournament, I think.
And that draw is so important because, a lot of different ways you could go with it.
Well, one nice thing is I'd like them to play Madisonville because that means they made it to the final.
Right.
As we all know, you can only play your district foe in the other from the other side. But it's a pretty stark contrast among the three. You have a team that beat you, and it's probably ranked a little higher. A team that you're basically statistically tied with, University Heights, Henderson being the other one, and then Lyon, a team you're ranked higher than. So there are three outcomes, and they're fairly stark in their differential of RPI, which is one of the new KSSAA metrics they have for ranking teams. Your draw is crucial in soccer because we have a district with only two teams, the fifth, and they're both getting out. So you have no real way to know their quality. They may not have quality. They may have quality. But this year they were ranked below Caldwell. That would be the draw. That would be the best matchup for the Caldwell girls in the first round. But I think they can beat any of them. I think they've proven themselves to be a team that can get to the regional final. And if you can get to the regional final, it's hard to beat a good team multiple times. I'm sure Rhett and the ladies would love one more shot at Madisonville.
I can attest to that last year. Obviously, I was with the Marshall County girls, but we were supporting our boys, and they had to play Callaway in the region final, and they had beaten Callaway 3 times that year and had to play them for the 4th time in the regional final. And that game didn't go the way that they hoped they would. It's just tough to see the same opponent over and over and over again and get the same result.
And when you have a coach like Coach Miller that will analyze the film and will look at matchups, he'll see some things that he might be able to try, or he saw glimpses, as you said, of something that he may be able to put in. Soccer is definitely a sport where you can try to get tendencies, and as you said with Hopkins Central, you want to get them out of what they did. They got you out of something. Maybe Caldwell can get Madisonville out of something should they get to the finals.
Absolutely.
Well, and you look at that girls' championship game Tuesday night, I thought Caldwell County had a great game plan. It's just Madisonville had a great player in Cameron LaGrange, and, she got hers. They shut her down most of the night, but she still found a way to get 3 goals.
Well, see, the thing, and I've watched her. We played against them, last year, and watching them this year. She gets the effect on people that she wants. She looks very mean and very tough, and she is a skilled player. But she does fall into some tendencies where you could pick her apart and frustrate her, and our defense just didn't pick up on it, and our midfielders didn't pick up on it. Because whenever I see that a player, like analyzing her, solely right-footed, so I'm going to put her on that left foot every single time, make it impossible to go to her. And we tell our boys the same thing because everybody has their natural foot that they're going to play with. And they're not great at analyzing that either. We'll tell them this player's only left-footed, so make him go to the right. First thing he does, he goes left, and our boys look shocked. So if they can pick up on things like that and make the night a whole lot harder for her, be a little more physical with her, then it'll be a different story, I think.
I think she's got, 53 goals this year. She's a sophomore.
She's had a very
She's
good
closing in 100 goals. I mean, I think Madisonville at this point is the girls' favorite in the region.
I would say so, yeah, just based on their record and having a dynamic threat like that, everybody's got their threats up front, but whenever your threat up front consistently gets the result that you want, that's a little different.
Now, does she get them more on open field attack, or is she on set pieces? How does she get her goals?
I would say it's honestly a little bit of both. I saw a ball get played to her on a set piece, and she made a turn and put it in. And then I've seen her, go on the breakaway, and if you back off her, she's going to punish you with a shot if you back off of her. So I've seen her get her goals. She's going to look to get hers however way you give it.
Regional tournament action begins on Monday. The girls is at the Stadium of Champions in Hopkinsville. Boys is at Henderson County. We finally got that finalized this week after, not really knowing where it was going to be for a while. I'm guessing the girls may play all of their first-round games on Monday since they've got 2 fields over there to use at the Stadium of Champions.
I would say so, but that probably depends on how many referees they have available as well, so you never know.
The Lady Tigers be playing Monday then, if that's the case, Monday or Tuesday. Again, the draw coming up at about 9 o'clock or a little after over in Madisonville, so we'll find out then. And as far as the boys' teams go, is it Henderson and Madisonville? Anybody else can slip in there maybe?
I would say it's definitely those two. You can make an argument for UHA or Hopkinsville. But like I said, I haven't seen those teams play. Madisonville for me is just on a different planet right now. And Henderson had a very successful year. I think I actually picked their goalkeeper first for my all region because he had only allowed 3 goals all season. And I know that's not just him. That means that defensive line did its job. So that means they're very tough to break down. So for me, it's definitely between Madisonville and Henderson, if just looking at stats as a coach and analyzing players.
I know Trigg County thinks they can maybe get in there and do a little damage with the right draw, too. They had a pretty solid team this year.
They did. I don't see Trigg's style working as well against some of those teams, not taking anything away from them because, naturally they do have a good team and they can put a hurt on some people if Will Jolly starts finding his goals early. But if I was that Madisonville team or a Henderson or a Hopkinsville, and if you can take him out of the game and mark him, it's going to make it a whole lot tougher because as you've seen on their score lines, not very many other players put the ball in the back of the net for him. So if you take him out of his game, you got to wonder where they're going to find it.
But you're right, Madisonville is really fun to watch unless you're the team trying to play them. Then it's probably not much fun. But just watching them play Central in the championship game the other night, they have so many ways to score in front of the net. So many ways to get the ball on the net, and that's how they count scores.
They move the ball very well, and they get out of their feet quickly, and they have numerous threats they can put the ball in the back of the net. That's a big thing. They played us, and they played a different formation but similar style, to where their wingbacks were up around our own 18, so they're defenders are on our 18 crossing the ball into players, which means they've got a left winger, a striker, a center mid, a defensive mid, and another winger. They've got 6 to 7 players that they can play the ball to. So any one of them can score. And I'll be honest right now, my coaching standpoint during that game, as they just put shot after shot in and we were on the hills, I started telling our bench, I said, you see what they're doing? Just analyze it. Watch it, because that's what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, that's what we want to do, yeah. Looking ahead to next season, then what would kind of be your expectations, or what kind of goals do you have for season 2 of your reign at the Tiger Soccer?
Well, naturally, talking from just a typical fan point, we do want to win more games. We want to go further in the tournament. That's a given. But overall, I want to see my boys play more of the style that we tried to play this year. Play our game all year long next year. Not have a single game where we show up to an opponent and we are forced to play their style, because it should be so ingrained into us at this point. But there's a lot of skills and a lot of technical work that has to be done to give some of my boys the confidence to get there. So hopefully you'll see more of the team that you saw glimpses of.
That'll be fun. It was a fun season. Sometimes you look at records and they don't tell the whole story. I've always said that I think teams should be judged by going into the season, where are you and where you finish. And I think your team really had a good year in that aspect this year.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We go back and we play some of those games that we had at the beginning of the year, with the team that I had towards the end, and it would be a completely different story. They grew, they learned so much. They didn't literally grow, as you saw, but they definitely grew mentality and in their soccer skills, and I'll look forward to next year. It's going to be a lot of fun. Adam and I, we as coaches, I tell them that I never stop growing. I never stop learning. So I read books. I watch documentaries on famous coaches. I watch formational studies. I'm constantly trying to adapt, just like I did whenever I was a player. So I'm going to come back next year with a better game plan, because there's no way everything I did this year was just perfect, and that's just not true. But he and I are working on our game plans. We're coordinating, and we're going to be a lot stronger next year just because we have a good spine between me and Adam and a good mentality of what we want to do.
Again, this morning we're talking with Caldwell County boys soccer coach Tanner Reed. Gary Goodaker also in the studio, and we'll talk more after this timeout on the Sideline Report on 1580 103.3 WPKY. The Sideline Report continues here on 1580, 103.3, and WPKYonline.com. Thanks to Tanner Reed and Gary Goodaker for coming in on fall break. Oh, man, I knew I was going to mess that up. I knew in my head when I said that I was going to mess it up.
We didn't have fall break. We're of that generation.
I know.
Our fall break was Labor Day and Thanksgiving.
Yeah, fall break is foreign to me, so that's why I fouled that up completely.
It's a new thing.
Who are you guys talking? I've never had a fall break. I've been a player and a coach my entire life, so I've always had a district tournament. I've never gone anywhere.
But I appreciate you guys coming in on break and being on the show this morning. And Gary, I want to talk with you just a little bit about Friday night last week out at Tiger Stadium, Hall of Fame night, and man, that's always a big night, and congratulations again.
I was completely surprised that I was inducted. I'm just so thankful for the committee that they saw fit to do so. I just want to be dependable. I think that's one of the things that I try to instill in all my children is be dependable. Be someone you can count on. And fortunately, for 23 years, I've been dependable. I've been able to be there. And then I also try to tell my children to be competent. You need to show competence in what you do so that you can keep doing it. I mean, there's plenty of people who want to do something, but you have to be able to perform, a task that people want and have a good attitude. Try to make the best of every situation, and I've tried to do those things, and hopefully that's allowed me to keep doing it this long, and I hope to do it for a few more years as well.
Well, it was a really fun atmosphere at Tiger Stadium on Friday. Not so much fun, the outcome of the game, the final score, but Hall of Fame night, senior night, those kind of things are always big nights, and the one thing that has always struck me when they have a Hall of Fame ceremony is how it seems like everybody in the place just stops to watch.
That I was just amazed at that, and I was very pleased. I mean, I've never seen it, obviously, from that point of view, and so many blue and gold still there, and it's really nice because I think that it shows the respect that the community has for people who have performed well and given their efforts, and they're also successful people. They've done well in their chosen fields, the ones who are in the Hall of Fame. And I think that's a testament to what sports can bring you, not necessarily just football. I didn't play football, but I played youth sports, and even those times helped me. And I think that people understand what you can gain from it. And I think that talking about Tanner looking at aspirational, I think this football looks at Mayfield somewhat in an aspirational way. Mm-hmm. What do we have to do to be like them? And I noticed that Tanner is all about the future, and I think the football team has had a good year this year, and I think they have better days in the coming years coming. I think we're going to be very competitive for regional titles in football as well.
Well, and like we talked earlier, I think teams need to be judged by what the expectations were. And going into this season, we all knew that it was a bit of a bridge year for the Tiger football program. We didn't know some of the other things that were going to happen, but I think the team came together and has had a really strong year, even though, that they were looking for a quarterback when the season started, and Russ Bashir stepped in there, and they were looking for some people to step up because there's only 6 seniors. But they've had a great season. I think they play Fort Campbell this week. That's an 0-7 team, so coaches hate it when you try to look ahead. But if you look ahead to next week in Murray, if Caldwell could get that game, then maybe you're looking at an 8-2 season, regular season. And that's in a year where, people were expecting maybe when the year started you'd be 5-5 or 6-4, somewhere around there. So if you look at it from that aspect, it's been a fantastic season.
What I look at from my point of view is, do I see the kids growing and making good decisions? I think that goes in all sports. In soccer, Tanner's looking for decision making. I, as a statistician, am looking for basically, I know many of the plays. I've figured some of them out. But did they make the right read? Did they make a decision like Russ has to make those decisions. He has most of the time when he tucked and run, it was the right decision for that call. And I look for those things. De'Eric, did he make the right cut? He's cutting inside now when he used to want to take it all the way as a sweep. When you see these decision-making processes getting better, you see growth. And yes, De'Eric's a senior, but still, we're going to need him for this season. And the people behind him see that De'Eric has grown, and they realize, well, if someone as talented as De'Eric can make adjustments, well, I have no excuse. I need to get better. When your better players lead and do the right things, it's a whole lot easier as a coach to point to them and say, look, our leaders are leading. You need to follow. This is how we do it.
Well, and one of the questions I've been asked a lot after the Hopkinsville game, it's like, what happened to the Tigers? I'm like, well, Hopkinsville's really good. After the Mayfield game, people are like, well, what happened to the Tigers? I'm like, Mayfield is really, really good. Mm-hmm. It's not a big secret. They have players that are, as good as anybody in the area, and they have a bunch of seniors, and we just don't have all those seniors this year. Our kids are mostly younger, but if you look at the future is really bright.
Well, this is what I like about where we're going with most of our sports. Both soccer teams are young. I mean, you can look at the girls and go, oh, yeah, well, they only have 3 seniors. And they have 14, 15, 16 kids that can play. Well, Rhett's got a great situation because he has competition in practice. And I've told you, we've talked about this on car rides to ball games, Henderson basketball. Yeah, they may not have many people much better than us, but they got more of them. They have competition in practice where their 10th kid is not that much behind their 6th kid, and they're fighting for minutes. When you have to fight for those minutes, then you get the best situation for as a coach, because you have that wonderful thing called the bench, and it's right there waiting for you. And if you know that bench is a real possibility, you will play harder.
That was my favorite thing as a player. If I was on the field, I said, this is my spot, come and get it.
And then you have guys like Daniel Kortner who have the best of both worlds. He's sitting there with the best team in the second region right now in volleyball, ranked number 1. So we can crow about that. It's not bragging if you're ranked number 1. So that's
fact-finding mission. Yes.
But he's only got 2 seniors.
Well, one thing that I think we're starting to do here in Caldwell is starting to realize that when you get to the high school, you may have to wait your turn. Now, soccer for the boys is a unique scenario, but there'll be a lot of people waiting their turn in about 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
When these kids are juniors and seniors and the freshmen have to wait. My son was a 7th grader and 8th grader on JV baseball, and I told him, you're going to wait, but you got to use that time productively. Reps sound good, but reps are only reps if you learn something from them. I saw a good tweet where, I don't know who the person was, he goes, I've been driving for 20 years, but the last 10 years I'm not any better because they're just mindless reps. I'm not trying to get better at driving, I'm just driving. If you're not going to practice trying to get better, they're empty reps, and someone's going to pass you, like you were talking about, Tanner, and people pass other players all the time. I've seen it forever. The freshman comes in, everyone says this when he's a senior or she's a senior, they're going to dominate. They don't always.
Maybe
they don't.
Not.
They get passed. And the bench is a wonderful way to show that I've got 11 spots, you've got 11 spots, 6 spots volleyball, 9 baseball, softball. Do you want one of them? Because someone's trying to get your spot, and if you already have one, there's a young kid that would love to have it.
Well, and when you start talking about teams and how they progress, a lot of it's on the players. Coaches can only do so much. There's no way as a coach to force people to come to practice every day and try to get better. Maybe you can force them to come to practice, but the attitude is all on the players.
Oh, yeah, and that's one of the most frustrating things about being a coach is, I think my graduating class, that I had at Marshall, every single one of us would tell you, if you asked us what our favorite moments were in high school, we're not going to tell you about the region titles or the district titles or anything like that. We loved practice. That was like camaraderie. We had fun every single day, no matter what we were doing. And we just loved trusting the process. We loved getting better every single day. We thrived on it. And that's kind of diminished now in our world of instant gratification and seeing everything done immediately. So whenever you find players that, love to train, I've got a few, naturally, based on my location, I go out to Butler Field all the time and I work on my own game. I'll send out a message to all my players saying, hey, I'm going out to Butler. If anybody wants to join me, feel free. And I have 4 or 5 show up sometimes, on their day off when they're resting their legs, and they come and they still want to get out there and work on certain things. So that tells me that it hasn't died, and more players, and whenever players see what those kids are doing and how much better they are, it's going to catch on.
Well, my son played some 15U ball, so he got to be the oldest for 1 year, and I had some parents ask us, how does he, pitching pretty well, how does he do it? I said, the hours. I said, we're in the backyard. I'm sitting on a bucket for hours. He's putting a ball on a tee, hitting a net for hours, and that's just to be on the JV. He hasn't even made varsity yet. The hours you have to spend, you can't make a kid do that. The kid either wants to do it or he or she does not want to do it. As a coach, you have to just take what they will give you and then give them the next level instruction, and also put them in the right opportunities to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've always said that somebody's either a ball player or they're not a ball player. Ball players show up and work to get better. It's like yesterday on the radio before the Cardinals game. They were interviewing Willie McGee, and they asked if Willie had given any big motivational speeches to the team. And he's like, no, if you have to give motivational speeches at this point, you have the wrong players, or something, words to that effect. And I'm like, yes, if you can't get up for Game 5 of, the deciding game,
home,
yeah,
right.
Then there's nothing anybody could say to those players to make them, play any better. That's just part of their makeup. But, I think it's a tough thing. But players own their teams. A lot of people look at the coaches, but players really have the ownership over how good a team ends up being.
Mm-hmm.
Within reason, the main thing is at these years, these precious high school years, is where the foundation is laid for so many other things. You say they're either a player or not. Well, to some extent, you're either a good employee or not. Do you take shortcuts? Do you do your best for your colleagues or your customers, whatever? In the end, the tactics you learn in sports many times carry over into your life, and that's what I try to tell my sons. What are you going to be, and how are you going to get there? You have to not just have a goal, you have to have a map to the goal.
We mentioned volleyball a little bit earlier. I want to make sure that everybody remembers that we do have volleyball on the air tonight. Lady Tigers hosting Massac County, Illinois, out at the Cab. That should be a really good game. 7 o'clock, somewhere thereabouts, airtime. Sue Stone will have the call right here on 1580, 103.3, and WPKYonline.com. Big chance tonight. There's not a whole lot else going on for everybody to go out to the Cab, watch a really great volleyball game. Could see a record. Savannah Tays is closing in on the career set assist record. She needs 6, so feeling pretty good about that tonight.
For that.
Yeah. Lady Tigers looking for their 20th win of the season. That would be 14 straight years. So that's pretty good accomplishment right there. There are schools out there that don't have any 20-win seasons, and the Lady Tigers are going for 14 straight.
Yeah, that's a very impressive stat, just because that goes to more than just, one coach or, you had a good class come through. I mean, that's years and years and years of we've got this built into our program. So that means Caldwell really just has a good foundation for volleyball.
Massac County is 22-4. I think they've won 12 straight. And I think I saw somewhere where they've won their region, whatever class it is. Illinois is one of those crazy states, Gary, that classes sports. Have you ever heard of such?
I've heard rumors about it. I'm going to check on the interweb and see if I can find out any information. It's definitely a pet peeve of mine and yours, and Scott Brown's been banging the drum for that. I don't know where we go from here, but the main thing you have to look at there is that they probably do play teams of their size. So maybe the 22-4 is a product of their schedule. Maybe it's a product of their elite status. We may find out tonight.
Well, they're a good team, and I think they lead the all-time series with Caldwell 6-3. And there aren't a whole lot of teams out there that lead the all-time series with Caldwell in volleyball. I mean, there's some Owensboro schools and some of the bigger schools, but you don't see a lot of them. So that'll be a fun little match. And then senior night is Tuesday for the volleyball team against Ballard Memorial. So, again, some chances to go out and watch Lady Tigers here at the Cab Gym.
I look forward to that. It'll be the first time I've gotten to watch them all year because naturally we're in season. I'm a guy. I love volleyball. It's some of my favorite games to go to whenever I was in college at Campbellsville University because it's so intense for every second. I tell people all the time, if you know soccer, a soccer game is intense if you know what's going on. But volleyball, you don't have to know what's going on because it's just constantly they're shouting, they're yelling, the ball's flying all over the place. It's just, if you like anything that keeps your eyes moving, volleyball is a place to go.
Well, momentum is important in soccer like all sports, but it's a big thing in volleyball. I mean, it's like you're trying to get in a rhythm, and it's not easy to do sometimes.
If you think it is, go out there and play with a bunch of people one day.
But anyway, we've got it on the air tonight. If you can't get out there, Sue Stone will have the call right here on 1580, 103.3 WPKY. Gary, what are you looking at in the Major League Baseball playoffs? Who you got going to the World Series?
Oh, well, I need to find out who wins tonight because the Tampa Bay and Houston game is critical because I think Houston's the best team.
Yeah.
But then again, the Dodgers aren't winning the World Series, and they're the best team in the National League. So if for whatever reason Garrett Cole's not on his game and Tampa throws reliever after reliever after reliever at Houston, which has seemed to be successful, all bets are off. If I really believe that this game is crucial. If Houston somehow gets through this, I think they roll. But the problem is you got to get through one game. I thought if the Dodgers got past Nationals, I thought they were going to beat the Cardinals. Now you've got a very interesting scenario, like I alluded to, where, yes, they have Strasburg and Scherzer, but that's 4 out of 7. Whereas they were able to pitch 4 out of 5 in a short series against the Dodgers. That was probably the worst matchup for the Dodgers, was to have the Nationals on a short series.
I had Astros and Dodgers, so half of my World Series is already gone, but I still like the Astros. But like you say, when it comes down to one game, if you let a baseball series come down to one game,
it's on you, mostly.
If you're the favorite, you're playing with fire.
And you've seen what that's happened. You've had 2 favorites, although I think the Braves were maybe a slight favorite over the Cardinals. I mean, borderline toss-up. But what happened was a, rarest of rare occurrences. I mean, I'm sure when you woke up that morning, you go, if the Cardinals get 10 the first inning, I like their chances.
Well, I always think that way, though.
Yes, and how often does it happen?
Well, it doesn't happen very often, but yes.
But
I'm always thinking my team can get 10 in the first.
Well, we call that in the business an ambush. Is that correct? They got ambushed. But if you look at that, but
that's
things.
Baseball. Baseball's crazy.
But it was a factor of many little things. One error. If they get that ball, Freddie Freeman, that inning's completely different. And another thing, I talked to Ben about this. We were watching it. I think it was unwise to bring in the reliever to face the pitcher first. Now, you may say, it's the pitcher, but the pressure, because you think, I can't walk, and he walked him. Sometimes a pitcher's just not ready for their first batter, and when you walk the pitcher, and now it's 5-0, I think if he had somehow be able to get out of it at 4-0, the Braves, then it's a ball game. But the 5, and then it just exploded. I think that the Flaherty walk was more crucial than people give it.
Well, I think a lot of times the best team doesn't win championships.
No, not in the series we have now. I mean, maybe if we went back to 1968 where one team, it would be the Dodgers, the Astros. They'd just be playing right now in the World Series. There'd be nothing else. Then I'm sure you could make an argument the better team won. But now one of them isn't making it, and maybe both don't.
It'll be interesting. Cardinals are still there. They got a chance. If you're a Cardinals fan, I wish Ty Englebright would have been here today so we could have gone back and forth a little bit about the Braves and the Cardinals, but
well, it's going to be interesting because I think the pitching matchups, Flaherty will probably have to go all the way to Game 3. However, if you make it to 7 on no regular rest, he'd be there for you. I think Michaelis just pitched an inning in relief. I would think he's probably your Game 1 starter.
That's what I would do.
But here's the key. Who do you pitch at home? Who do you pitch on the road? Is Michaelis better at home? If so, probably go there. I don't think you can wait till 3 anyway. So I think because Flaherty pitched Game 5, I think you've locked him in 3-7. I think everything else is just a jigsaw puzzle. There's really not much way around it. Wainwright maybe can go 4, and maybe you go with Hudson and Michaelis in some order.
I think Wainwright probably pitches Game 2.
You think so?
Since it's in St. Louis, I think he's a lot better at home.
Well, that's the question is if you want Wainwright twice, and if he pitches 2, he can pitch 6, which gives you an extra day rest.
Again, at home.
Right.
So there you go. It's going to be fun.
It will be. I think that's a good I think the Cardinals have a good pitching matchup, but of course the Dodgers found out real quick the Nationals have good pitching too.
And you just don't know. That's just it. You try to pick them, but all those guys are good. Everybody's got good players. It's just it's tough. Baseball's tough.
I hear this from football players more than any other thing. They get paychecks too.
Yes.
The other team, because they'll be playing some team that's 2-11, and somehow they get beat. Well, they get paid to play. So these are people with pride. You cannot get that far in sports and not have some measure of pride. And I think now what we're seeing is you have pride, talent, and basically the desire. And with those 3, I think all the games are going to be great in the ALCS and NLCS.
Well, again, thanks to you guys for coming in on break, and I appreciate it, and look forward to having you back again sometime.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Gary. That's Gary Goodaker and Tanner Reed. I'm Todd Griffin. Thanks for joining us on the show today. That's going to wrap up the Sideline Report for this Thursday. Again, thanks for listening here on 1580, 103.3 WPKY.